Hello, and welcome to the Bob Priest Show of Life podcast. My guest today is Dr. Ashley Lynch. Hi, Dr. Lynch. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Is it okay if I call you Dr. Ashley during this podcast?
Perfectly fine.
Great. Um, Dr. Ashley was born and raised in San Diego, California. She was an EMT, emergency medical technician, at one point in life, bachelor's in biology with a minor chemistry and psychology. She went on to Naturopathic Medical School in Seattle, where she received her doctorate in naturopathic medicine. She's board certified in biofeedback, um, did her residency at a primary care clinic in Solana Beach, California, and is currently assistant professor at a naturopathic medical school in San Diego, where she also works in a health and wellness clinic running her own practice as a naturopathic medical doctor. And I'm sitting here looking at her, and she's got a lot of credentials behind her, but she's a nice looking young lady, and I'm excited to talk about what she's passionate about. So, welcome to this podcast, Dr. Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, I read a little bit at your background, and we've heard a little bit about that. But what what happened that you obviously were interested in the medical field, being an EMT back in your earlier days. So something, got your interest going. You did not go the traditional path of medicine. You went a different route. Tell us about your story and how you became interested in that particular field of medicine.
Yeah, so, I think at a young age, I always knew I wanted to be in the medical field. It was either working with animals or humans. And I, chose humans. And, I always loved animals, so they'll always have a special place in my heart. I was actually on the conventional medical route. I was looking to go to a traditional medical school. And so I was preparing while I was in undergraduate to make sure that this was a route that I wanted to choose because this would be a career for the rest of my life. So that's why I went into EMT school and went into emergency medicine. And as much as I did enjoy it, I felt like, there was something still missing. I didn't know what that was. So I kept exploring. Throughout my schooling, I did stem cell research. Maybe I'm like more of a researcher. That wasn't really, speaking to me. I worked at different doctor's office as receptionist. And I just felt like, why aren't people being asked about their relationships or their diet or their sleep? And I found these foundational things in our life that were missing in our questionnaire, our HPI, as doctors would say. And when I got my bachelor's, I was still looking at traditional medical schools, and at that point I was really, you know kind of confused on where I need to go. And I was looking at, master's programs, and I was studying for the MCAT. And I had a friend who I've known since middle school, like, you know what, Ashley, you should really check out this naturopathic medical school. And there's one in San Diego, there's one in Seattle. And so I had my doubts, I think as a lot of people do. And like, I don't know. They're not really real doctors. And
That's what a lot of
it's
people
just like,
say.
yeah, yeah. So I was definitely there. And so, I was like, okay, fine. Let me just check it out. Just, check it off my list. So I go there, and I noticed that they had a whole botanical herbal garden based on each body system where they picked these plants and made medicine. And I was just mind blown on that. And I was like, wow, you guys actually are using the medicine from the earth, and which is where pharmaceuticals essentially come from. They're just mimicking a biochemical compound in that herbal medicine. And I think that was a big turning point to see there's an actual community that utilizes nature to heal the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was pretty much my turning point. And I, visited the campus in Seattle, in Bastyr, and it's a beautiful campus. I mean, if you ever go up there, it's in Kenmore, Washington. The university is in a state park. And so you go in, you go in for like a half mile, you're still in forest. And then out of nowhere, you see this beautiful old, it used to be a seminary building. And they converted it into this university. And I was just sold. At that moment, I felt it in my heart, like this is where I'm supposed to be. And I think throughout medical school, my training, I learned more and more about the medicine. I didn't know it all in the beginning. And, when I was trying to explain to my family where I'm going, it was a little bit difficult to, try to explain. But now I do not regret my decision whatsoever. I am so thankful that I went this route. I am also thankful that I had, the EMT, the traditional medical background that I did leading up to that. And I would say also a combination of family, history, medical history that I learned along the way where, wow, my family members could have benefited a lot through this medicine. I had family members, put on pharmaceuticals for pain and, got addicted and went to other routes of getting that high. And I lost some family members along the way. And it's tough because you see that now in the medical field where pharmaceuticals are, being prescribed left and right and not really assessing to see if this is actually indicated or needed for the patient. Don't get me wrong, as a naturopathic doctor, I'm allowed to, prescribe medications, but I'm very, that's not my first go-to. I'm looking at sleep, diet, lifestyle, relationships, their environment. I'm looking at, how's their stress, how's their work, before I'm moving on to, the next modality. But yeah, I think I would say that's, my journey and how I found this amazing medicine. And yeah.
That is just really awesome. And there's a couple of key points that I heard in this story was you thought you were going to go a certain direction, but you were uncomfortable with some of the decisions. So instead of just jumping in, wasting a lot of money and time, you kind of navigated it kind of slow. And when you didn't like what you were going to, you immediately or pretty quickly into it made a decision to reverse course. And unfortunately, I think a lot of our young people think they're going to be this, that, or the other. Then they get stuck because they've already invested so much time and money that they don't make the transition. So bravo to you for that. I'm sure. And you also had to go through the struggle of trying to explain to people what you were doing when you were still trying to figure that out yourself. And I think that's the point of what I'm hearing from all the naturopathic and holistic and alternative medicine practitioners that I run into is they've had to fight their own fight, so to speak, to get people to take what they do seriously. And I loved what you said, that when you went, they had their own botanical garden. I think back to when there wasn't a pharmacy. There wasn't people that made up medicines and synthetic or otherwise. People were living off the land, and they found through probably trial and error what herbs and different things would work to help take care of different issues in their life. And that's a lot of what you do, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is really cool. So being, we're a little bit different in ages. I'm still good looking for 66, and you're gorgeous. All right. So, but I've gone through this traditional medical route. And the one thing that I've noticed the most, especially 7 years ago, I had a stroke, or 6 years ago, I had a stroke. And I was a cyclist and a runner, and I was like, wow, how did that happen? I thought I was in fairly decent shape. But I never to this day got the answer as to what happened, other than I had a stroke, probably something broke loose, lodged, and created the problem. But never once was I talked to about any kind of a holistic approach. All I got was scripts and medicine. And there was narcotics, there was things to help with nerve damage, there was all this kind of stuff. And here's what really happened. I felt terrible after starting to take all this. I had no energy, I had no desire. My desire to just do anything was just out the door. And I started having these aha moments, and I went to searching for what else is out there. And I tried some other different natural products and different things like that. But I don't know that we always are willing to do that. And initially I was ready to give up, and I was only 60 years old. And I really kind of had this aha moment, Dr. Ashley, that I needed to find other approaches. And that's where I think you and others come into play. And I wish many years ago that I had been more, I would have been a kind of person that wanted to learn more and wanted to search people like you out, because what I've learned in this age of my life now is you bring such a fantastic approach to medicine. And here's the thing that I really like, and you talked about it. What about sleep? What about this? What about these things that actually you need to talk to me about? We need to have a conversation. Every appointment I've had with a doctor in the past 5, 6 years, if I'm there 15 minutes, that's a long time. And if they touch me, it's a miracle. The conversation is minimal, and it's only about whatever I specifically went in there for. We can't talk about this other thing because that's not what I signed up to talk to them about. Medicine's changed pretty drastic, hasn't it?
Oh yeah. Yep. It's in a way like they have an algorithm, and I've seen that, when I've went in and I see how they're clicking the button, like, okay, you have this symptom, click. Okay, you have, this what happened, click. Okay, we're gonna run these labs, or this is the medication you're gonna put. I remember one time I mentioned, yeah, I'm a little stressed with school, and so they, clicked the algorithm, and they started asking me these very, in depth, like, are you, thinking of harming yourself? And are you gonna, do something drastic? And she's just looking at the screen and not even looking at me. And, I couldn't even believe it. Like, do you even know what you're saying? Like, can you have a connection with the human right in front of you?
Yeah. Gosh, that's so
Yeah.
true. And so let's talk about your approach. Let's say I'm a patient of yours and I'm coming to you for the first time. Just let's dialogue. What would you do if you're my doctor now, Dr. Ashley, and I come in and say, I'm run down. I don't have a whole lot of energy. By the way, I had a stroke 6 years ago, and I just want to get off this medicine. I want to find a better way. Can you help me?
Yeah, so most often when patients come in my office, they pretty much been through a lot of specialists, a lot of different doctors. They've done a lot of testing, imaging, and they're coming to me because they don't have answers. So a lot of the time, I tell them, send me the lab, send me the imaging report, um, so we could get a better picture and kind of fill in the gaps. And they, patients do appreciate that because they don't want to spend more money on more testing and imaging. So I work with my patients in that way. I'm a little bit more mindful on expenses because in the state of California, we're not covered by insurance, which could be a blessing in disguise at times. But so I am definitely mindful of expenses, and so reviewing the labs before patients come in, I usually send them a questionnaire right before a visit. And this is a thorough asking for your medical history, um, supplements, medications, surgeries, traumas in your life, everything from you were born to now. I want to know about it because everything that we go through, it affects the health, physical health, emotional health, mental health. And so that questionnaire is pretty extensive. And I tell patients, take some time with it, have a cup of tea or some coffee, and I review that. And so when we get together, I spend about an hour and a half, sometimes two, because I'm getting a thorough medical history from my patients. And, because their gut issue could be related to maybe their back pain that they had or a respiratory infection that they had 10 years ago. And so that first visit, reviewing medical history, taking some time with it, doing physical exams, and I'm having that conversation with the patient. I'm like, look, these are maybe the labs I want to kind of fill in the gaps with, or let's try some first. I have your labs, let's do some basic nutrients or some basic diet support, or let's get your sleep back into play. Or okay, you're very stressed with work, how can we work on reducing that, whether it's going to be with biofeedback that I'm certified in, or maybe some herbal medicine. A lot of my patients come in with a lot of medications, so I'm very well versed in pharmaceuticals, as I should, because I'm also prescribing botanicals. And so, they can interact. So if you don't know what you're doing, you want to make sure you have someone who knows what they're doing and working with both of those. So a lot of medical doctors, they're not comfortable with botanical or herbal medicine. And I think it's just, because they're not trained in it, they generally tell patients don't do it. But when I'm working with patients, I'm explaining, look, maybe these interact, let's, not go with those. These are okay. Because I have to be very well versed in that biochemistry. So again, having that background is crucial. And from there, it's pretty much a primary care visit. I'm ordering labs if needed. We're doing follow-up visits, checking in, coming up with a protocol. And depending on what they come in for, I could see them sooner, maybe a few weeks, maybe a month or 3 months. It does depend on what they're coming in for, but that's generally my approach. And I'm using the lowest intervention. So for as you can see this poster behind me, it's the therapeutic order. And as an ND, we are trained in utilizing this in all types of treatment. So the first at the bottom, and you could upload this for your viewers. The first one is establish foundation of optimal health. So foundation, sleep, fresh air, clean water. Are you getting those things? And the next one is stimulating self-healing. Are there ways to increase your body temperature to maybe kill off the virus inside you. Too many times we want to suppress the temperature, suppress the eczema. We don't want to put it back in the body. We want that discharge out. And then our next approach is support in restoring the weakened systems. So maybe there's a nutrient deficiency. Maybe you're, not getting a certain mineral in the diet. Let's support those organs and, body systems so we could kind of get you back into good health. And then, generally the rest are a little bit higher intervention, either pharmaceuticals, surgery. I mean, I'm not doing surgery, but this is our approach, our pyramid where we work up with patients. So we're generally going with the lowest force intervention and working our way up, which patients love that. They like, yes, if I don't have to do surgery, please, that's a headache in itself.
That's a last resort pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Again, it varies. That's a topic where we've discussed with my colleagues, like, maybe this person actually their first resort is surgery. Again, those are rare cases, but it's not out of the question.
Our bodies are just miraculously made. And I'm learning more and more by listening to different practitioners. For example, I had a young lady on one of my first podcasts. She had a terrible issue with foods. And she was, even because of the way foods tasted, the way they interacted in her body, she became very anorexic and just hated eating, was basically going down the road towards death. She was 16 years old at the time. And she threw her hands up and was giving up. And the parents didn't know what to do because they'd done everything. And she heard something about some naturopathic approaches in Mexico. And she packed her bags at age 18 and went to Mexico. And for the next couple of years, found out that she loved food. And there were some things about food that she loved. And the whole bottom line was it was all natural. It was everything from the ground. And she healed. And because of that miraculous turnaround, she became a holistic person and has done a wonderful job in her practice. She lives in Canada. And I was just so taken back. And I would encourage you to listen to her on my podcast because you all need to meet. You all need to talk because she has a miraculous story to tell about what you do, what your practice really is all about. She found out before she even knew that existed. And now she's become a practitioner. And that's what I'm starting to learn more and more. I wish 30, 40 years ago that had been the case, is what you bring to the table is so important. And that's why I started this podcast, is I wanted to get the word out, get education, let my listeners hear someone like yourself, Dr. Ashley, and what it is you do, what it is you don't do. And you've got a pretty broad background. So sounds like to me, I could come to you and for all intents and purposes, you could be my primary doctor through life but you're going to approach it from a whole different perspective that it's going to help my body because my body responds better to naturopathic methods. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So here's a question for you. I live in a pretty rural area in Virginia, and I couldn't tell you right now a naturopathic or holistic person within 50 miles of me. How could someone like me in a rural area that really doesn't have access to practitioners like yourself, how could we benefit from this kind of a relationship when I can't go somewhere to meet? Do you do things online? Are you able to do telemedicine, so to speak? Or how does that work? And can it work?
Yeah, so I do telemedicine. I'm limited with California. However, if someone was to, wanting to see me outside the state virtually, it would just be kind of a different bubble. I'm not going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a health coach. And I, can't order labs in that, state, but I could help them, kind of guide them, working with them if they have a primary care doctor, kind of letting them know, hey, order, ask them for, these labs, or maybe you should, talk to your doctor of, discussing maybe working up this condition. Kind of, being their advocate. And it's nice, yes, with technology. Telemedicine is great. I do have that option. Um, and, being in a more rural area, working with the land, and you have me as kind of your coach in that. Looking what's around you, what plants are growing around you. You'd be very surprised in what medicinal plants are actually in your neighborhood. Yeah, and we could take a walk virtually. Have me on your phone and let's go walk around.
That's cool.
A lot of yeah, yeah. Um, Getting back to the basics. This is what we did thousands of years ago. And we survived and we became better experts at herbal medicine and a lot of antiviral herbs, antimicrobial herbs that live in a lot of rural areas. So if someone has a respiratory infection or maybe a gut issue, definitely something that they could utilize. And then also making sure that I'm a huge advocate of environmental medicine. So talking with them of how's their water, how's their air, is this something that we could work on in your living space. And there's so many resources out there that you could check your water, your tap water in your area. You could check the air quality in your area, to see, hey, maybe this is maybe not a good day to go take a walk around the area because the air quality is not that great. So yeah, definitely ways to work with me. And if you're not in near me or in the state, or even in a rural area, um, definitely an option for sure.
That's great. So you can actually put on a different hat with the knowledge that you have as an MD. You just can't prescribe for certain things. And there's a little bit different relationship, but it works. I'm glad to know
Right.
that. We may have some conversations.
Yep.
Have you written any books or articles, or are you working on anything right now?
I haven't published anything. I'm definitely working on articles and blogs and yeah, that sorts. I've kind of been MIA with the whole, social media and you know, all of that sorts. I've been so focused on um with my patients and teaching and, just establishing my new clinic that I just you know, opened with. So it's been a lot of transitions, and I in a world of so much social media and podcasts, I'm like, you know what, I need to I need to start doing this because I do have a lot of information that I would love to get out there. um but yeah, stay tuned. I'll definitely let you know if I post anything.
Well, that's great. And I hope this podcast will get the word out that you're open and ready. And congratulations on opening your new practice and getting things up
Thank
and
you.
running. I'm proud of you. And I hope that turns into a big success and that people are coming to you because they see the benefit. As I already can tell, there is a big benefit.
Mm.
Um, you've kind of given us a really good broad perspective of what you do, naturopathic medicines, and so on, and how that differs from the normal traditional way of doing things. You have a pretty big focus. I was noticing you talked about allergies, environmental medicine, cardiovascular health, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, gut health, hormone balance, sleep issues, mental health, nutrition, skin health, and weight management. And you know, that a lot of people, they have all of that. You know, there's all of that going on, and it's like, where in the world do you start? But you just chip away at one thing at a time, don't you?
For sure. Yeah. And it's so hard to disconnect, many of those. If someone has weight issues or they're gaining weight and they can't lose the weight, I'm usually working up a patient the same as if I was with chronic fatigue or chronic disease. Because again, looking back at those foundations, even with blood work, I'm looking at those foundational markers, our vitamin D, our cortisol level, which is a stress hormone, looking at our adrenal glands, where, commonly adrenal fatigue is something that you'll hear where people are just been in a chronic state of stress and now their adrenals are just shot. And those are usually similarly, I'm working up pretty much the same way. Again, I'm always individualizing patients and approaching them, based on what they're presenting.
I've heard this numerous times from different practitioners. It's all starting in your gut. Is that true?
Oh man, I could talk about the gut all day.
You know
Definitely,
what?
the gut is huge.
Yeah, well, typically it is for a lot of Americans, right? Um, but but if we have a bad gut health, we have bad health, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. The I would say our most concentrated area of our immune system is actually in our gut. So if your gut is not right, your immune system is not doing well.
Wow.
Or the most serotonin receptors are in your gut. Serotonin helps our mood. It helps us feel happy and getting through the day with energy. It even helps with sleep. So if your gut is not right, that could definitely take an impact on all of those things. Skin. When I see skin issues, I'm almost always testing the gut because the body always wants to push out the disease, you may call it.
Mhm.
Whatever's happening inside, it wants to push it out. So often with, eczema, for example, doctors want to give it a cortisone cream and we say that suppresses it, where it goes away, but it pushes it deeper in the
Mhm.
tissues. And so often we see that with children growing up with allergies, they suppress that eczema, and most often they end up getting asthma. That's a suppression, it's going deeper in the tissues. If we just had to maybe address some allergies in that, child's health, we could have prevented some asthma or respiratory issues.
That's some pretty that's one of the best explanations I've heard of some of the simple things that we hear about as we had as kids, but if we had done something a little bit differently. And that's cool. I hope you folks out there heard that. That's why we need to look more into holistic naturopathic approaches to medicine, because it's beneficial for us. It allows us to look at things from a different perspective. A lot of people don't go to the doctor until they're sick. When should they come see you?
It's a great question. It's never too early to start working on your health. Um, as you mentioned, and I definitely felt the same as when I was younger, as an athlete, I wish I knew about this medicine prior. Even from injuries from sports, we're taught to do the cold bath, go in there, and I'm learning that may not actually be the best option. That might have contributed to longer healing time. And same with nutrition. I wish I knew about nutrition before, because I have a, family history of dementia. I have a family history of diabetes. And genetics is something to consider when working with someone's health and being proactive. Um, I wouldn't say family history or genetics is gonna, that's your destiny. It's more of we need to consider it and understand how aggressive do we need to be with maybe your heart health or your cholesterol, because that does play in a factor. And being proactive, you know, I think looking at it as an investment, when we invest in either property or our retirement fund, we're looking at the future to make sure we're comfortable for our family. And when we are also investing in our health now, it's the same concept. You're investing in a future of comfort, not having health issues, not always going to the doctors, not always being on pharmaceuticals. As that could take a toll, and that takes a lot of time, maybe away from your family or grandkids. Um, and so never too late or never too early to start looking into your health now. And even if there's not maybe a huge concern or a symptom or condition that you may have, let's get the basics down. Let's make sure that you're getting the right nutrients. Maybe you're eating a certain diet that is limiting you from a certain mineral. Let's get the ball rolling now. And again, you have me as a resource. I tell my patients all the time, I'm your advocate, and there's no judgment. I don't believe in being restrictive on, diet or, lifestyle. You know, I just ate a In-N-Out burger last night, so there's no judgment. And so I want patients to be comfortable and communicating with me like, hey, I wasn't too good this last month. Life happens. And I don't want patients to be scared of their doctors or their healthcare
Mhm.
practitioners. We need to create this relationship, this trust again, because I find so many of my patients walking in the door for the first time, they're looking at me like, I don't know if I should trust you. And I'm again creating that trust back in, but I think as all healthcare practitioners, we need to practice that good communication, that non-judgment. If someone cheats, hey, we're human and it's going to happen, but
Right.
I'm here to talk about it with you.
I like that, Dr. Ashley. That's the way it needs to be. I had a wonderful doctor here in town that I went to, especially after having my stroke, and he was a regular traditional doctor, but he also had already started moving more functional. And was when I had the stroke, he didn't just throw me on all kinds of drugs. He did put me on some things to help me get some things under control, but he also at the same time was putting me on certain supplemental type things. And he explained to me why. And he said this, and what I loved about him is he wasn't just being this person that was in a box and had been there for the last 30 years. He knew there was new and better and other things. And unfortunately he left and went to an area that he could practice more holistically. And he's more of a functional doctor. And I've seen a lot of doctors moving in that direction because they want to have that relationship with their patients, like you're talking about, you have with yours. And I think that's so important. And I commend you highly for having that mentality and that approach. And you're going to do great things in the world of medicine and helping people. Um, I always ask my guests to leave a couple pieces of value for my listeners. And you've already done that. You've dropped a lot of truth bombs today, but let's narrow it down to two things that you would like our listeners to think about.
Oh man, just two, that's hard.
You can do three.
Okay. Um, I always tell my patients, question everything, you know, even if it's the doctor in front of you, if it's a science journal, news article, media, always have an open mind to maybe this is not only the truth, because science is always changing. The medical field is always changing. And I remember telling one of my patients, because he was so scared. A doctor told him that his condition is, uncurable, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. And I challenged him to question that. Even if the person right in front of you, has this white coat, all these degrees in in their office, that doesn't mean anything. That is, it helps, but they're just someone who everyone has their opinion. And if you feel like there's something that maybe you're diagnosed with, or with health, or anything, get a second opinion. Talk to someone else. Look around. Don't rely 100% in one person's advice, whether it's professional advice, whether it's a family, a friend. Going back to what you said about the younger people growing up and not really knowing where they want to go with their career.
Mm-hmm.
And so often I did endure that when I was, in undergraduate. People would be like, "Oh, you don't know what you're doing yet, or specialty," or like, no, I'm enjoying the journey right now. And I tell that to your listeners, like, enjoy the journey. Just as health is not linear, life is not linear. You're not going in a straight line. You're going to have ups and downs. So I would say another point to take home would be learn from the elders. Learn from those who live longer than you. I wouldn't be the doctor, the daughter, the sister, the partner I am today if I didn't learn from my elders. And they have so much wisdom. They've seen so much happen in the last decades. If you have the opportunity and you are blessed with being around grandparents, aunts, uncles, ask them. Be curious. What happened in your time? How, what was something that you learned from that era?
Mm-hmm.
What is something that I could take? And I wish I had more of my elders today. I miss them so much, but I did learn so much from them. And I feel like they lived through me with my patients, and I bring that love and that light to others. But yeah, I would say learn from your elders.
I love that. I really do. You are wise beyond your years. And
Thank you.
I love those two. Question everything. That doesn't mean you have to be belligerent and mean and mean spirited. It just means we need to be inquisitive. I've told a lot of people this lately. And by the way, I've become a life and health coach as well. And because as I started this podcast, just became so intrigued by what these different practitioners are bringing to the table that I felt like I had something. I was learning. I was an educator for 40 years. So I had that aspect behind me. I was a music teacher. And after my stroke, I had to retire. So I needed that avenue. So it's been fun learning, and I'm getting to meet such neat people like you. And then you drop these truth bombs on us. You know, you don't often hear a young person say, learn from your elders. And
Mm.
a lot of people, a lot of industry, a lot of things going on in our world today have excluded the older generation as being obsolete, and they're out the door, they're about over with. And back when I was a young guy, I used to say I used to sit at the feet of the gray-haired people. And I did that. For some reason, I gravitated to those people that were older than me, quite a bit older than me. And as a musician, all the way through my life in different avenues, I've always spent my time around people that are older than me because I always get some form of wisdom from them. And then I hope I impart that on to the generations below me. You had some great words of wisdom today, Dr. Ashley. And I'm so
Thank you.
encouraged. I'm so encouraged by this podcast with you. You've got a great practice going. And I want to encourage our listeners to reach out to a practitioner of holistic or naturopathic medicines around your area and just give it a chance. Look into it and just, like she said, question. Be curious and see if this is something that could help you with an illness or an issue that you've not gotten help in other traditional ways, because it could be the thing that you walk away with going, wow, I wish I'd been here first. And I think that's exciting. So last little bit, tell us how we can reach out to you if somebody wants to check you out, especially if they live in California. How could they reach you, Dr. Ashley?
Yeah, so I would say you check out my website. You could reach me from there, DrAshleyLynch.com. That's DrAshleyLynch.com.
Great.
And I, started going on Instagram and started posting more, little facts.
Great.
I would say that's Dr. Ashley Lynch on Instagram.
Right.
DR.
Yeah. That doctor, you earned that. So we need to make sure we use it.
I appreciate that.
Yes. I love my doctors, and I just, that when I would go into them, this was always a joke. I'd go into the office on my day of appointment. I go, are you still practicing? And they look at me and say, what do you mean? I said, well, you're a practicing doctor. I just want to make sure you're still practicing. And they look at me and they finally realize what I'm saying. When I go to my dentist, I would say, are you still down in the mouth? And I always just had this relationship with them because, you're people just like I'm a person, and we have to have this openness with us. And I love that about what you brought to the table today. So thank you so much. I hope that our audience reaches out to you, looks you up, and wants to learn more about your practice and what you do. Folks, this is Bob Priest with the Bob Priest Show of Life. And my real motive here is to open the door for you to have access to learning more about holistic, naturopathic, alternative, functional type medicines and modalities that are available to us in this world today. We don't have to sit in that little box that we think we have to be in. If you want to learn more about me, go to my website, www.bobpriest.life, BOBPRIEST.life, and continue turning into this podcast because we have great guests on here like Dr. Ashley Lynch. Thank you, folks, and you have a good day.